Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to my game dojo. You know where you are. You know this luxurious, wonderful place. How you doing? I'm the Game Ninja, and I'm here to talk to you today because somebody wrote in my comments, what do you mean when you say weapon of choice when you start playing a video game? Well, I have an answer for you. Weapon of choice normally means game controller in the game dojo. Anywhere else in the world probably means something totally different, but here it means controller. We have 215 controllers, each unique to each system that we govern here in the game dojo, including ones that work on PC. Your PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, your Xbox 360, your Xbox One, your Xbox One S, your Xbox One X. All those controllers actually work on PC as well. So when we say weapon of choice, we mean to the controller wall. And our controller wall comes from one of 5 different places. We have here, this is a Nintendo controller wall. We have the Xbox wall here, which is another controller wall. We also have, I don't know if you can see it, tilt this up a little bit. Okay, so over here and over there. Those are the Nintendo controllers, as well as some other special edition controllers. And then we have over here on this wall, that is our PlayStation wall with our PlayStation controllers. That's right. So every place in my room is designated with a controller. So when I say to the controller wall, I mean to one of these functioning walls. And people are like, why do you have so many controllers? Well, there's a quick, easy answer, and then there's a short, roundabout answer. I'll give you the one in between. So, if you have a PlayStation, of course you're going to have a PlayStation controller. If you have an Xbox, of course you're going to have an Xbox controller. If you're going to have a Nintendo, of course you're going to have a Nintendo controller, Atari, Sega Genesis, so on and so forth. So, for each system, you have those controllers. But back in the day when we were battling it out in tournaments from household to household, we had something called passing the mic, which means if you were invited to a game, tournament, circle, whatever it was, you bring your controller. Your controller is your buy-in. That's your collateral. That's your pink slip. Like if you were in a Fast and the Furious, you was racing for pink slips, that's your pink slip. If you lost your controller that night. So somebody left with your controllers. So it's kind of like bragging rights, a status symbol, and a trophy of your victory for that night. So each controller on this wall, I would say out of 215, 112 of them were one. So each one of them means something. But on the same token, I rock on PC as well. So a lot of people back in the day, my brother included, got me hooked on to emulators. And I used to love going to his house, and I'm like, how are you playing a Super Nintendo without a Super Nintendo? Like, this is mind-boggling. And he had a controller, keyboard, mouse, thing like that. I don't mind keyboard and mouse. A lot of people are PC gamers, and they use keyboard and mouse, WSAD, those keys, and the arrow keys, and I don't have nothing against you. If that's your medium, yeah, it's faster, it's more control, I get it. But to me, I always about the experience. So what I started doing was I was like, why can't you use a regular Super Nintendo controller on a Super Nintendo, Phil, if you bust in a Super Nintendo? And he was like, well, they make like some aftermarket ones and stuff like that. But I was like, no, why can't we have like the regular controller work when you playing that emulator? Like, it completes the experience. Excuse me. If you're playing a Super Nintendo, why not have a Super Nintendo controller? Sorry about that. I don't know where that came from. I've been up for hours, and it's really late at night. But I had to get this out because I was thinking about it. Where was that? Oh, yeah. Okay. So I got to the point where I had a bunch of Super Nintendo controllers. I have about 8 of them on my wall. And I'm like, I used to splice stereo wire and splice wires to get stuff to work on stereos and cars and my Walkman. And just back in the day, you had to be inventive on how you work with stuff, because you ain't always have the money to go out and buy another pair of headphones or another Walkman, or your favorite tape gets shredded. Like, you gotta learn how to take it out, cut it, tape it, re-spool it, stick the pencil in it or the pen that's perfect for the little spokes, and you just twist it in there. Like, same thing with VCR tapes. You did the same thing, learn how to cut, splice, spool, pop open, clean the heads. Like, you became aficionado of the things that you worked with. It just happened. So I took apart a Super Nintendo controller, wanted to see what was inside. It was pretty simple, more simple than I expected. And then I looked at the wiring combo that they had with the sleeves, and which ones were sheathed and ones were uncovered, and what kind of wires they were. And I took a local USB controller that I had and cut off the second time. Bro, I get ready to go to sleep. It's the second time. Cut off the ends and took the USB and looked at what was inside the USB, and the wires were not that very dissimilar from the Super Nintendo wires. And I was just like, I wonder if you spliced them, could you make this Super Nintendo controller port a USB port? And I tried it, and of course it didn't work. But you know, if first you don't succeed, you try again. So I tried again. I tried a different combination. I tried a different conductor, foil, tried this and tried that. Looked for different things that had like USB couplers, look at things that had different USB ports, cut them open, look at the wiring, see if the wiring was different. And I finally found something that was similar to them. And I was like, they're almost exactly the same. Now, of course, I didn't have any chemical composition to see if the two things were different, but they looked exactly the same, both wires. So I tried splicing one combination with the other combination, and I used some electrical tape to hold them in place. And before putting the plastic back over the wires, I just, taped it up. So, I don't think it was enough electric to fry you. Maybe give you a zap, if that, but I looked into it. Didn't seem like it was enough. So I plugged it into my computer at the time, which was a compact Presario. Not exactly your best gaming unit out there. Anybody who's owned a compact Presario know those things are havens for problems. Oh my God. I can't tell you how many times. Well, that's a different story. Anyway, I spliced it. I put it in there. I loaded up the emulator, which at the time was 9X. 9X is probably one of the best Super Nintendo emulators that I like to work with, myself. So 9X worked really good. So I spliced it, put it in there, and I went under the drop heading, and it detected the controller. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. It detected the controller. I went in, I mapped the controllers, the buttons seemed like they worked, everything seemed like it worked and functioned really well. So I decided to make the connection more permanent, make sure it was tight, there was no wires touching other connectings. I did that with the electrical tape that I had, making sure the wires was apart from each other but still together in the same spindle. And then I tried playing Mario Kart. And it worked. It worked well. It worked very well. So much well to the point that I purchased a few more of those other after brand USB controllers just to convert them to real controllers. And I started to get it really, really good. And then I tried it with the Nintendo 64. I tried it with the Wii and the Wii U. I tried it with the GameCube. I tried it with the Atari. I tried it with the ColecoVision. I tried it with PlayStation 1. I tried it with PlayStation 2. Even Xbox controllers. But Xbox controllers natively didn't come USB because they went into the Xbox system. It was that weird round controller. But they did have ports that you can put on there, because during the Xbox 360 time, there was a lot of controllers that was USB. One of the main ones I had was a fishing controller that you could unplug the dongle at the end of the controller and plug in the regular one so it goes into the Xbox. But you could also make it USB. And that little attachment was wonders for my next level of development when I started changing controllers over to the PC. So now that I'm busting Super Nintendo with a Super Nintendo controller, I had to invite people over. Hey, come over, check us some out. I want to show you something. Are you playing Super Nintendo? Yeah, I got the graphics down correct. I got the sound down correct. I got the bit rate down correct. Everything was down correct. It was actually, if not perfect, a little bit better color-wise and graphic-wise than the actual Super Nintendo. And I still love it. Matter of fact, I did a side-by-side of the Super Nintendo version and my version. And I preferred my version, looking better. So after I did that, I had people over and they were just like, all right, this is pretty cool, but I don't like playing keyboard and mouse. I was like, don't worry about that. You in a dojo. We don't play keyboard and mouse in a dojo. So I handed them a Super Nintendo controller. I'm like, what the hell is this? And I plugged it into the top of my computer. USB port. They're just like, this shit work? And I'm like, sit back and relax, man. You about to find out. Ran it, popped it on there, bust some Mario Kart, bust some old Super Nintendo games, and they're just like, damn, this is hot. This is really hot. But didn't stop there. Project 64 made a Nintendo 64 controller, popped it in, bam, running out of the box, blew their mind. So I'd done this with probably about 4 or 5 things up to GameCube and Wii, and I thought I had something great and amazing. But I'm like, I like this. I like the fact that now that these things feel like the real systems on the computer with the real controllers. It made the experience better. Because nobody ever wants to bust it with a different controller. I mean, you can, but you want that experience, that total experience to play a Super Nintendo with a Super Nintendo controller, a Nintendo with a Nintendo controller, a 64 with a Nintendo 64, big boomerang, triple, however you held it, controller. So I went up to my brothers and I was just like, yo, this is what I do. I put the controller with the real system and we bust it like this, and I go through configuring all the specs to make sure everything is just butter going through there. So he liked it, and he had he was working on somebody's system, and he had like a Wii. He had a Wii controller, a nunchuck controller, and the regular Wii controller, and he had a Pro controller. Now, the Pro controller was never a problem, because the Pro controller plugged in. I could use USB. That's not a problem. The other controllers, there's some games you need a nunchuck on to play. So it took me a while. So like I said, I'm over at my brother's, and I was trying to figure out how to get this wireless Bluetooth Wii nunchuck controller to work, because I didn't have a sensor or anything that I could use for the computer for it to work. But at that time, Bluetooth was in its infancy, but it was available. So we went out and we looked, we found a Bluetooth dongle, and we wondered if, maybe it'll work with the Wii the Dolphin emulator, which at the time, nobody had any idea if it would work. So every time I went to his house, I would drag my tower, and my tower was a huge monstrosity, this thing, and it was heavy. And we would work on it and try things, look for more emulators, more game systems. We were trying to recapture our youth, is what we were trying to do. And we found this Bluetooth dongle. It was about $10. We got it from Amazon. And we put it on, and then we had to find a specific Bluetooth software, because everywhere we looked, it wasn't going to work. People that tried doing this, they tried doing that, and it just wasn't going to work. The Bluetooth back and forth. We finally ended up coming up with a software that a couple people tried, and it worked for them. So we tried it too. So the first thing we did was trying to get the computer to recognize the nunchuck, which was fairly difficult to do, to get it to, believe it or not, because now everything comes native Bluetooth, and new Bluetooth is on everything. You just press a button, it shows up, they talk to each other, it goes. This one, incoming packets, outgoing packets, there was a lot of stuff that was involved, but we ended up getting it to pair and work. So one of the first videos, if you go back on my channel, you'll see is my brother Phil playing Donkey Kong Country on the Wii, the Dolphin emulator. And nobody knew that it wasn't a real Wii, because for all intents and purposes, we were playing a Wii with the Wii. Now the crazy part is, once we got it to pair to the computer, when we booted up the emulator, for some reason it automatically detected the real Wii controller. there was a little section you could drop down where it says real Wii remote, and it detected it automatically. So we started doing it. It detected the motion, it detected everything, and it was a dream come true of fusion, because right before our eyes, our mad scientist little brains, we had busted it. We have it. We now have the Wii on PC without a Wii. And we have the actual Wii controllers. And he started to get the feeling that I was telling him about, using the actual controllers on the actual systems. And it was amazing. Everything about it was amazing from point A to point B. We played for hours that night. Didn't want it to end. And of course, when we took it out and went to pair it again, there was issues again with the computer. There's always issues. We figured out how to configure it the right way, saved the profile, loaded it in there, and it worked. And it's worked ever since. So then we wanted bigger, better systems. At the time, there were a lot of emulation that wasn't perfected, so there was a lot of things that couldn't really work and run right. Besides having a very strong processor to accomplish these things, as well as the right computer and software and hardware in order to manage these things. But when it finally got it to the point where it was correct, it was a gaming station. It was a real PlayStation. All the game systems you had as a kid, some you've never had, some you never had the ability to own because they were so expensive. The Panasonic 3DO Reel, that was a $600 system. People in the hood that I grew up in, nobody had $600 to blow on a system. Hell, people barely had enough money to buy a Nintendo. The first Nintendo on the block, that person seemed like the rich kid. Everybody went to his house to bust a Nintendo. It was a while until they brought sales prices down for people to get Nintendos for Christmas, and it made it a household phenomenon. But like I said, so when it comes to the controllers in these rooms, in my room, each one has a story. Each one tells a story, and each one has a rich history behind it. But it's amazing that all of this started in one room, in a basement, me and my brother Phil, mad scientist brains, and him opening the world by showing me emulation. And now, 30 years later, here we are with the world at our fingertips. The world at our fingertips. And you won't believe what we can do now. This one goes out to my brother Phil. I thank you for handing me the keys to the kingdom. And now, you set a blaze, brother, that will never stop. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I want you to sit back, relax, and get ready for these game tracks. Because I am the Game Ninja, baby. And this is just what I do for you. Let's get gaming.